Welcome to everyone. This is Maddern Financial Money Talk, or a very special guest today, an athlete, Glenn Busby, over here just in front of me. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on Glenn without blowing too much smoke in his direction. He's a very humble man and he just rolls his eyes every time I talk overly positive about him. He's got 2 degrees, 2 applied science degrees in physical education, biology, and he's got a diploma in sports psychology from the University of Sydney. He's an elite and Australian coach, won numerous commendations through the US Tennis Association, the Australian Tennis Association. What's one of the most impressive, though, is his level of world titles that he's won. And he's won something like 25 world titles, of which 13 are singles. Now, it's no mean feat to do that. It's ITF-run tournaments, so they're not like, respectfully, Diamond Valley-run tournaments. They are major. ITF is located in London. They're major world. So Glenn has got an enormous commitment to sport. He's currently the head coach of the Kooyong Tennis Academy, and he's grown that from a standing start in 2001 with apparently 6 students now to over 24 different coaches that he's got. He's sent 16 or so students away to full US tennis scholarship universities, and suffice to say his credentials keep on running. So welcome, Glenn. I hope I haven't said too much, have I?
No, that's okay. Thanks,
Okay,
Dennis.
good. As humble as I am, he says. So we'd like to start. Glenn has a Facebook page that I'm always having a look at from time to time because he updates his tennis accomplishments, and as I've mentioned, they are extraordinary. He's airborne in one of the pages. This is not his tennis page. This is his personal Facebook page, and he's hitting this backhand. The legs are pulled up against his chest. He's just simply flying, basically. He's airborne. But what's most interesting is not his capacity to have the elasticity to do that, but the quote that he has on this particular page. And I'd like to use this quote as a link into achievement, performance, making money, because this is a money talk video, and of course, generally success. And his quote says, "In order to succeed, we must first believe that we can." Now, this positive mental attitude's been around with Norman Vincent Peale and his power of positive thinking. Dr. Dennis Waitley had a quote, "If you can conceive it, believe it, you'll achieve it." So in other words, if you can visualize it, internalize it, then you'll achieve it. But it starts with that vision. It even goes back 3,000 years to King Solomon in the book of Proverbs. And in chapter 23, verse 7, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Glenn, we've known about for 3,000 years the importance of getting it right in the noggin, committing it into your heart, which means internalizing it, and then getting on with the job. Why do we need over 3,000 years constant reminders of this? What is it in the human condition? Do we forget it? Does it have to be taught? Does it not come naturally? Would you like to comment on that as this concept again of these motivational sayings? Norman Vincent Peale, King Solomon, your quote again, Dr. Dennis Waitley, US motivational speaker. What are your thoughts on this?
It's interesting because a lot of people use visualization just as a tool, and to me, it's what you're saying. It's not enough. You've got every cell in your body has to feel what you're trying to achieve. So there's a thing called neuralistic programming.
Yes.
And in doing that, you're basically trying to internalize every cell in your body, seeing and feeling what you want. Now, you say it's around for 3,000 years, but people just don't do it. They forget it.
Yes.
And so you're continually having to teach people what to do and how to do it. I've set out programs now where I can internalize starting off a journey to the end of the journey and do it within 15 seconds. And I get goosebumps at the end and I can go, bang, I've internalized it and I know exactly where I'm going to go and what I want to achieve. And it's interesting that we just don't teach this. Children at school need to learn all these sort of things. Yeah. And it'd be so easy.
Yeah. Is it in your DNA though? You're a motivated guy. I get up at 5:30. My daughter says to me, "Oh, Dad, you're so intense." So, and you've said to me, "Yes, you're so intense. Lighten up. Take a chill pill."
Yep.
So, is it in somebody's DNA, or can it be taught? If we did embark on it in schools, can this be taught? This enormous, unswerving, dedicated commitment to a task, or is it in your DNA, or is it not?
Yeah, I think we've got personalities that certainly move towards being totally motivated and disciplined. And we talk about, success, which and it's the same in business. Success is a choice, not an accident. And so it's what does success mean to everyone is different. But I know for you and I, it's totally different to someone. Success is just getting out of bed. In business-wise and success-wise, we're driven.
Yes.
And I think it's something that we've perhaps come from our childhood, from our patterning from our parents, without a doubt.
Yes.
And I think we're both big strivers in those areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
The British did a series called the 7 Up series, and I'm sure you've seen it, where they took a series of videos at children at 7 years of age, 14 years of age, 21, 28, and they're still doing it now, and these people are 70-something. And they wanted to test the proposition of what the Jesuits said, and that is, give me a child until he's 5 and I'll give you the man.
Yep.
Now, the Chinese have the tiger mums, where, again, you're taught violin very early, you're sent to tennis lessons with yourself and your other coaches, that you're taught to study and not watch television and have a frivolous lifestyle. Do you think we must get human beings early in the piece, as the Jesuits say, or as the tiger mums say, give me a man until he's 5, give me a boy until he's 5, or a girl for that matter, and I'll give you the man or the woman. Do you accept that? Do you got to get them early?
You do, but you also want variety in their life. You want something. To me, people say, should I be doing this amount of work this early in my life? And I would prefer them to do a variety of things so that they're developing a wider range of skills. Right. So that at 5 years of age, 10 years of age, these days may be different to years gone by, I'm not sure. But I don't know, putting all your focus into one thing at an early age now, I doesn't sit right with me.
Yes.
And as much as, if you want to be an elite businessman, athlete, whatever, and you want to start them young and you discipline in those areas, I'm sure you're going to achieve it. Yeah. But are you going to get a full-rounded person?
So your view would be, let them have their childhood. Let them play in parks, goof around,
100%.
Whatever, and then when they're ready, okay, then they can move to that. So you can't really choreograph it as such.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
I really
don't.
No, that's good. If we were to take some of these athletes, and let's just pick the big 3 that are wandering around at the moment. 2 of them have retired, Djokovic, Federer and Nadal. Do you think that they certainly embody some of these principles, but would they be successful in business? Would they be another Bill Gates? Would they be a Steve Jobs who started Apple? Would they be a Warren Buffett? Would they be a Richard Branson or not? Because all of them had a little bit of trouble. Federer used to throw rackets. He was a spoilt brat. Yep. And finally, the Swiss Tennis Federation had to ban him for a while. And the same thing with Borg. The Swedish Federation banned him. So what do you think is that if you have these incredibly disciplined things as a soccer player or a tennis player, any other athletic pursuit, even gym, is it translatable into the world of business? Do you think?
Without a doubt, they've got the same principles, but you have to have a passion.
Right.
So where your passion is, whether it's in investing, whether it's playing a particular sport, you have to have that passion, and combining that with hard work, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. But you've got the same principles involved as to understanding, why am I involved? What's the direction I want to be? What are my goals? What are the steps? So they've got the basic principles, but you have to have that passion.
Right.
Without a doubt. You're not going to go into being a soccer player, even though you've got all the principles that you want to be elite in everything you do. So I think that's the most important thing, that number one. They've, without doubt, they're driven. You can see that. And they have the same principles involved. But if you haven't got that same passion,
Yes.
then I don't think you're going to be necessarily be able to transfer everything into another area.
Yes. What about residual connectability? For example, people have said to me, look, you've done a lot of studies and so forth. And I said, look, I have Irish skin. I used to play tennis in 35 degrees. I had zinc cream. My face was covered in those old days in zinc cream. And the wind's blowing, the balls are flat, the guy's cheating you. But when you study, you sit in a library in air conditioning with a yellow highlighter and a Mars bar. And people would say, did you find that hard? And I'd say, are you serious? Compared with Irish skin out in blazing sun, in high humidity areas. But the ability to translate, having done that and having achieved that. Now, the Duke of Edinburgh's awards are predicated on this. In other words, teach the child to be successful in something. It can be marbles. Yeah. And then they translate that across. So having played tennis, not at your level, but having played tennis and out there in 35 degrees and high humidity and blazing sun and everything like that, skin peeling, etc., to sit in a library with a yellow highlighter and a Mars bar, it's a cakewalk.
Yeah.
It's easy. So do you not see that you can take the skills that you've learnt in whatever it may be and translate them? So I'm asking the same question with a little bit more of an anecdote attached.
Yeah, you're trying to get it.
To see if you're going to give me a different answer.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a couple of people who have done extremely well in business and might not bring up their names, but
sure.
Without a doubt, you're transferring those skills.
Right.
But again, I'm of the belief in one way that if I want to be the best in investing, I'm going to give it to the person that I believe is the best in that area. I can't be a master of every skill.
All right. So I want to, I don't want to.
I know what answer you're looking for, and without a doubt, I can transfer those skills. Yeah. But it still has to be my passion. I think that I really want to, delve into that area. You're a figures person. I'm out there on the court, and it's the same principles, but you're far better at doing that than what I am.
Yes.
So I would give you those, give you the chance to looking after all my income.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah.
And a lot of people coming in at different ages, the first mandate they have with us sometimes is, for God's sake, don't lose it. No crypto, no sexy stuff, just sort of blue chip shares, property, various other things. So no, we thank you. We thank you for that. So if we were then to look at, are there any key ingredients that in your experience when you've looked at, because you were a coach of 3 top 20 players in the world, and people need to understand how amazing that is. And you lived in Florida in the United States for 2 years, and you trained a lot of very successful and hit with a lot of very successful players. Are there certain characteristics? Can you see certain demonstrable behaviours in them that you can say, I think in a few years? Like, there's an old story about Lever. He went up for a smash years and years ago when he was a junior, and his coach Charlie Hollis was in the stadium. And Lever hit the ball a little bit late on his racket, being a lefty, and he shot it way over the baseline. And the guy said, well, he's not much chop. And yes, but did you see the way that he got up for it? Did you see the way that he hung in the air? And all he has to do is simply meet the ball a little bit early, and he'll bury that ball in the court. And Hollis was saying, I could see that. I grew up in Brunswick. Frank Sedgman was from Brunswick. Now, half the audience will not know who Frank Sedgman was, but a heck of a player. Won Wimbledon, etc., US Open, all those sorts of things. He was a very late bloomer. He was an absolutely rubbish junior. It wasn't until about 18 or 19 that he started to really perform properly. But again, Harry Hopman and the gang saw these early signs, like Charlie Hollis saw, again, despite the criticism of Lever and his ability to hang in the air, hang time, if you like, to borrow a Michael Jordan term, and the ability to balance and to backstep and then leap and balance and so forth. He saw things. Do you, in your experience with achievers of either business, personally, or athletically, do you see these little KPIs, these little windows into their soul? Do you see them at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And tell us about some and talk to it.
Look, I think with all the hard work, obviously is the number one most important thing. And what you see your players, or whether it's business, makes no difference. It's what is happening behind the scenes that you don't see determines the outcome.
Yes.
And, it's easy just to do your 2 hours on court or go and study for a couple of hours. But if you're putting in another 20 hours somewhere along that no one sees, then you know that you want to achieve and you want to perform. And with you talk about these three players, there was one called Amanda Coates, who was
South African.
Yeah, she was like 15 in the world, and she wanted to get to. It's the same in business, sorry, but she wanted to get into the top 10, and she had to change her groups. So whether we change the way in business or we change our groups, it's the same sort of thing. She would come off the court with blood on her hands because in changing her grip, she had blisters all the time. She was such an elite athlete. She only came up to my chin. She was so small.
Yeah.
She ended up playing Steffi Graf, I think, 7 times in this 1 year. The last time she beat her, and she ended up getting into the top 5. But you could see she wanted it more than anything else, and she was prepared to do so much outside of the court to actually achieve that. Now, not every player's like that. Not every businessman's like that. As I keep saying, success is not an accident. It's something that you're working towards all the time. I certainly see these things in the elite athletes.
Right.
And so when you look at the young ones, you're looking at those that are, okay, who are prepared to put in that little bit extra?
Right.
Who are doing something behind the scene, perhaps going to the gym 3 times extra than others, or going out and going for their extra runs, or want to hit more balls on the court. Right. Absolutely. I look at hard work and passion.
Right.
You've got to love what you do.
Yes.
You're not going. You can achieve to a certain level if you don't have that drive, but there's certainly, you see those things in the elite.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer. Dr. Dennis Waitley, again, an American guy, full of cliches and one-liners and all of that. And another one of his is, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Exactly.
And that probably sums it up. That no matter what you're in, whether you're trying to break into television journalism, whether you're trying to break into a sport, whether you're trying to get a really good job in a good company, whether you're trying to climb the ladder in a company, whether you're trying to get your investments right, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and better at it you become. It's really, just to borrow another American term, goddamn hard work. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. Luck is being prepared for when that opportunity comes along, that you're actually ready to take it.
Right.
So if you're not prepared to take that opportunity, you can't take it.
Yes.
So, that's probably one of my biggest things. People will say to you, oh, you're so lucky, you get to travel, you do all these things. But they don't see you doing 6 days of training, before you go to work, and all these, the extra things, opposed to what everyone else is doing. Yeah. And the study that you put into it. I mean, I've got various programs that I do differently to other people. But I've done hundreds of hours of studies into that to achieve what I wanted to achieve.
Yes.
So it'd be nice to just get out of bed and just go, I'm going to achieve this today without doing the hard work.
Yes.
But and importantly, you've got to enjoy the hard work.
Yeah.
That's part of the passion. It's you can't look at it as, oh, geez, I've got to do this today.
Yes.
It's something I really look forward to and I want to achieve, and I can see I'm improving 1% every day doing this and this, and it's that's the journey.
There's an old saying that the only 2 certainties in life are death and taxes. I actually think there's a third, change, and that change is constant. You change in marriage, the children grow up, the things change. You have change in technologies, GPT, social media, all chat GPT, social media, etc., all of that. But to bring it back to tennis, I remember during COVID you did a video where you showed the evolution of a forehand, and you took back to Laver and the old concept of an Eastern grip and maybe even a continental grip, and you'd just simply, finish the racket out in front. There was no emphasis on topspin and all of that. Then you took us through Borg, and then you took us through Lendl, and then you took us through the Federer forehand, and then now they're even talking about how different the Alcaraz forehand is. So you've not only got to dig in and do an enormous amount of hard work, but you've got to constantly change, because it's not just the style that changes, but the technology changes. Again, graphite, titanium, etc., etc. Do you want to talk again about you must have, I think, unswerving commitment to the task, but you must also have flexibility and adaptability to adjust to change. Would you think?
Totally.
Yeah.
This is where education comes in.
Yeah.
And it's so important, business, sport, whatever, keeping up to date with the changes that are happening, whether it's technology, whether it's technique, whether if I'm in a business and I'm just doing the same principles that I've done 20 years ago, then that's where I'm going to be. I've got to keep up to date with what's happening, as you say, with AI and GPT and whatever. It's like tennis is the same. There is so many variables that are happening with movement patterns on the court, how to become faster. I know Sinner, for instance, I don't necessarily always relate it to tennis, but they found about 18 months ago that they were looking at all the tens of how their strokes were just as good as everybody else, but they weren't beating the top players. And so they started looking at movement patterns and they found that their movement wasn't as good as a Djokovic. How could we change that? And that's all to do with, again, new technology. The business is the same. We see we're doing something, but we're not up with the top guys. What do we need to do? How do we adjust? What's now happening in the real world? Yeah. So education is just critical, and I find, if I go to a seminar and if I can learn one thing, then and I've achieved something, and it's just keeping up to date with and how then you adapt that to what you've got, because you don't have to use it all, but you need to be aware of it. And how you can use it wisely.
Yes. I think for you, being an elite coach with the AIS and everything, you've probably got CPD points that you must keep up with. I know with my certifications in financial advice, again, I must keep up with something. But if you're a middle order business person or a middle order tennis player or athlete, it behooves them, I guess, to take short courses, to actually go along to seminars, because I know you talk a lot about in your lessons about biomechanics, about movement patterns, kinesiology, etc. Now, to many athletes, biomechanics, kinesiology, I just thought, I practice free throws like Michael Jordan. I just keep hitting those, and you've got to be tall enough and you'll be okay. So it's constant. So they have to find ways to educate themselves. I've got compulsory education I must do, otherwise they take licenses away if I don't do CPD. I'd imagine you've got to keep up to date, otherwise they take your elite training licenses and away, the USTA or Australia or the AIS or whatever. So it's very important these people find in business or in athletics the right courses to go to.
In tennis, and it's really frustrating me, they used to do this. Right. They don't do that anymore.
Right.
And for us to keep offer quality programs, I believe that we should be doing courses all the time.
Right.
Sure, it's time consuming, but we learn and we develop and we're making better decisions with greater knowledge.
Right.
And whether it's business, sport, it's the same thing. And if we want to improve, if we want to develop, I need to find out what's going on out there. Yeah. And I don't have to agree with everything. Yeah. But if I know how I can help an athlete or I can help a business person, it's the same strategies. But education is just critical.
Yes.
And not enough people do it.
Yes. What do you do to improve yourself educationally? Here you are. You're still a relatively young man. A few more wrinkles than most, but
thanks for that.
You've done well. What do you personally do? Do you just read? Do you go to AIS seminars when visiting professors come along or something? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I'm on the internet as much as I possibly can,
right.
Just looking at different things. It's okay, I can go back a little bit. I had major injuries where I was in hospital in Germany and Turkey. And so I had back problems for 25 years and I was relying on other people to fix up my problems rather than me myself. So I did hundreds and hundreds of hours of looking at who had the strongest core, who had the best physiques for what I wanted to do on the tennis court.
Right.
And so I've come up with programs that I know work. They're different to everyone else out there, but that's just, again, research and studying. But I had the passion to do it. I've got the why. Why did I want to do it? Because I wanted to get better.
Yes.
And I don't want to be the same as everybody else.
Yes.
That's just my internal thing.
Yes.
I don't have to be out there showing people or whatever. It's just my what I want to achieve.
Yes.
And I keep on wanting to be better. Performance excellence, I guess, of how do I how can I improve next week? How can I improve the week after? What do I need to keep doing to create more opportunities? And really gets back to then being able to create more choices for yourself and more experiences.
Yes.
Which is what I'm after.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Glenn, an average day in your life. Now, most people get up, they yawn, they have a cup of coffee to get the heart start. You know, your alarm goes off of a morning. What do you do? Do you get a cup of coffee, sit down for a while, read the paper, go, and I know the answer to this already. What do you do?
Okay, so I get up every morning and I'll
Roughly what time? Ballpark.
Okay, let's say it's 6:30.
Right.
And I'll do 20 minutes of trampolining work.
All right.
I'll do 10 minutes of TheraBand work.
Before brekkie?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And this is what I think everyone finds is that when is it the best time for you? It doesn't mean the morning is for me. If I don't do it in the morning, I won't get it done in the day. You might find it better after work. Right. That's fine. But it's also finding, I guess this comes back down to the passion part of it is what works for you. You may want to do weights all day. Yeah. I find that for me, running and doing weights is something that hurts my body more. Yeah. So I found ways that I can now perform a different way. Yeah. And again, I just keep relating back to business. It's no different.
So the trampolining is, you do it on, I think, a big trampoline with the kids once had, but there are these small rebounders that you can do it on. And what's the purpose of that? What's the goal in rebounding?
Okay. So I actually have 3 small rebounders in my house as well.
As well as the big...
and in my office.
And your office at Kooyong, right.
Yeah,
God, 4 of them.
Yeah. So it's... And if you have a look at... I saw something with the Australian cricket team. They have trampolines out there as well. You've got a lot of businessmen. Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins. Yes. He has it before he goes on. It gets him in the zen, you might say, before he gets out there. Businessmen use it in their office all the time because 10 minutes of trampolining actually is worth an hour of running. Right. But there are so many health and physical benefits of doing this. Too long to go into. But it's... you've got 30 trillion cells in your body, and every time you bounce, every cell is being energized. Right. And so, without going into there's a huge amount of benefits. Yes. But, I've done hundreds of hours of research to see, NASA started off doing the research into this and the British Journal of Health and Fitness. And there's just so many benefits. So much. Yes. Yeah.
And the other one you mentioned was TheraBands.
Yep.
Now, do you work on the upper body and the legs? I see people put Usyk is training for this big, tall English guy at the moment in the boxing, and I saw him the other day with a TheraBand around both of his legs, and he's just moving with it, and he's moving and stretching his legs further and further apart. Yep. So do you do TheraBands on the legs as well as the shoulders and the wrists and all of that? Because Rafa Nadal can be seen on a net post with his, just going like that. So what's your routines? Not in extraordinary detail, but just generally.
But what I've found with the TheraBands is it's called specificity of training. Right. So you're really training specific to whatever sport you're in. Right. And so I can train and do what I want in tennis and use the exact same muscles rather than doing, bicep curls and having great biceps and walking out on the court. I've got huge, but it's irrelevant to tennis. Yeah. So how do you use those muscles and those movement patterns is how I use the TheraBands. What are the most important movements that I want? So I'm using that with the strength, and I also use it on the trampoline as well. Yeah. So I can combine them.
And what about planking and things like that? Do you do that? Because again, it's almost competing against yourself rather than weights and free weights and things. Do you plank?
No, I do a lot of push-ups. I do a lot because it's an area that, importantly in business or in tennis, you've got to work on your strengths and your weaknesses. Yeah. So if you keep working on developing the front part, you need to develop the back part. Yeah. So, again, the research shows, or for me, injuries have been caused because I've done too much work in the past on the front part of your body. So now it's so important to work on the back part. So that
to pull those shoulders back.
So that you're walking back this way rather than that way or that way. But again, I keep getting back to business. It's like you've got to work on the strengths, the weaknesses to balance it all out. Yes. And find out what you're not good at and how you can keep improving.
And the core is critical. Say something about the core.
Well, the core is the business, isn't it? If you've got the core right, the business is...
it's the beating heart, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, again, trampoline, I can work on speed, endurance, flexibility, speed. It's like there's so many areas that you can work on. And it's the best thing for lymphatic drainage. It's the best thing for increasing white and red blood cells in your body. I can go on because I'm just so passionate about it. It's like I have my PhD in trampolining.
Yeah, no, good on you.
I love it.
Yeah,
and it just energizes you the whole time.
Yeah. I think the message for our listeners out there really is that there's no easy path to success. And as they said in Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. All right. So you've got to get a direction, which is this vision thing. You've got to internalize it and commit to it. And it's hard. And there will be 2 steps forward and 1 back. Improvement has, again, a certain cycle, doesn't it? Where I can remember playing, you might teach me something and I go up to a certain level and then next minute I've gone backwards. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks is like a mini miracle. I've gone up to a new level, but then I go backwards again. So it is this 2 steps forward, 1 back. But you've got to dig in. It's hard work. Technology changes, rules change, court surfaces, they slow them down, they speed them up. And it's the same thing in business. Legislation changes, new rules come in, governments change. And you've got to adjust your thing. New competitors enter the market that are big multinationals or smallish firms with a whole new angle. Cryptocurrency suddenly comes in and so forth. And so you've just got to be on your toes constantly and you've got to self-educate. You've got to just stay learned throughout the whole process. So would you say that's a summary of the essence of what we've chatted about today?
Without a doubt. I mean, my number one thing is education.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Wow. You educate yourself to be better every day. That's my goal. How can I read things, look at things, do things that are going to hopefully make me improve? And again, the end result of that is I give myself more opportunities.
Yeah.
I give myself more choices.
Yeah.
If I can keep trying to be successful in what I believe is, I don't care what anyone else thinks out there. It's just what I want myself.
Yes.
And so I've still got plenty of goals that I want to achieve, moving forward. And that's part of still working harder and harder and doing the things that I love doing.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
All right. To end then, Glenn, I'm going to ask you a question. Again, it's of a massive interest to me about tennis and so forth. I'm going to ask you the GOAT strokes, and then I'm going to ask you at the end the GOAT. GOAT forehand. Greatest forehand of all time.
Greatest forehand. I think you have to look at probably Federer.
Federer?
I mean, yeah. Look, Nadal and Federer are totally 2 different styles.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the greatest, it's more. I'm sort of thinking more about what everyone could probably develop.
Yeah.
Rather than the Nadal one he's got an extreme grip which very few people use. So you could say that's the great. I know I've heard so often that what happens when he hits the ball. I mean, it's so.
Yeah. Andy Roddick talks about that the ball climbs along his racket.
Yeah.
And then it's just almost uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So all right. So Federer, GOAT backhand.
Oh, I think you'd have to look at Djokovic.
Djokovic?
Yeah.
So little Kenny Rosewall wouldn't get in there?
Not these days.
No.
And it's hard comparing generations.
That's
You've
right.
got to look at what's the best in that generation.
Yeah, that's right. That's Laver's view.
Yeah.
All right, GOAT volleys. Because nobody volleys these days, virtually.
Well, you've got to say Federer again, don't you?
Yeah.
He's the only one. Although, when you look at stats, Nadal actually did hit more winners than anybody else.
Right.
Simply because he had so many people on the defence that when he would come forward, it was almost a guaranteed winner.
Yeah.
So, and it's a pity because more points are won at the net than what they are at the baseline when people actually are able to come in and perform.
GOAT serve. Sampras, yeah. It's pretty good. So better than these huge, gigantic 7-foot people like Isner and these folks. Yeah. So Sampras better serve. Yeah.
Technically so simple and so accurate.
Yes.
And so much power. Without a doubt, he was. But people won't remember those sort of guys.
No. Okay. Greatest movement around the court of all time.
Djokovic.
Yeah.
Not a doubt.
It's amazing.
And this is what I was saying with the Italians, that they, and again, I'll get back to business. It's like if someone's doing exceptionally well, You know, you follow that model. You look at that model. What can I adapt? How can I use it to my business? And it's like this is what the Italians did with Djokovic. They looked at his movement. How can we develop that to a greater degree than what we are at the moment? And then you look at Sinner now, who's number one in the world.
Fantastic.
So, it's always being adaptable, learning and developing those skills.
And the greatest tennis player of all time, male, and the greatest tennis player of all time, female. So you can go with Laver's way, which is an out that all you can ever be is the best in your generation, which is the answer he always gives to McEnroe and others.
Yep.
And he doesn't comment as singularly because the technology is different, the food is different,
Sure.
All of that, and the training methods are different. But if there is a GOAT male and a GOAT female, who would they be, Glenn, in your view?
I wish I had been able to see him. There's a guy called Lou Hode.
Yes.
And the people that lived during that time, which is the 50s and 60s, they said that he was probably the best player they'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And again, you can't compare generations because there's things called equipment and changes, as you said. But he apparently on his day is possibly the best that's been out there. And that's probably Serena Williams.
Yes.
She,
Jack Kramer said that if Earth was ever to play for its survival against another planet, select Lou Hode. If you could have one match, and it was all dependent on the survival of Earth.
Yep.
It was totally dependent. You'd play Lou Hode.
Yeah, and people don't know that much about him.
No. Well, he injured himself early and died at 60 of leukemia and everything like that.
Get a bit of a drinking problem.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. Glenn Busby, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure having you come in, and thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis.
Cheers.
Good on you.
Bye.
Okay.